Hey, Amanda.
Hey, Tommy.
What do you think Christmas and Playboy magazine have in common? Do you think anything?
Well, it can only be one thing, and that's A Christmas Story.
It is, luckily, and that's what we're going to talk about today on Can We Talk About?
What do you want for Christmas, little boy?
My mind had gone blank. Frantically, I tried to remember what it was I wanted. I was blowing it.
Come on, kid. How about a nice football?
Football? What's a football? With unconscious will, my voice squeaked out,
Football. Okay, get him out of here.
a football? Oh, no! What was I doing? Wake up, stupid! Wake up! No!
No, I want an officer right undercover and I shoot you in a jet with my rifle.
You'll shoot your eye out, kid. Merry Christmas. Ho, ho, ho.
Can we talk about A Christmas Story?
Yes, I would say most popular Christmas movie ever made.
Ever made? You think that? I'm trying to
don't
think,
know.
because we did an episode on Home Alone, but
I mean, Home Alone, yes. Elf, yes.
yeah.
I mean, there's many, but A Christmas Story literally runs for 24 hours nonstop. So I don't see how you can compete with that airtime.
We literally just started, but I'm already searching up most popular Christmas movies.
It's a Wonderful Life or Miracle on 34th Street. Those are both huge Christmas movies, but I just feel like this one gets so much airtime. And by doing that year after year after year, I feel like it finds new fans. And I don't get annoyed that it's on all day, like especially on Christmas Day.
No.
You're like in front of the TV, not in front of the TV. And every time you sit down, it's at a different part. So like by the end of the day, you've watched the whole movie. It's based off of a little kid named Ralphie, and it's kind of his coming of age story, and it all revolves around this like one winter time Christmas era of his life. And the normal hijinks of being a little kid. He deals with a bully. His father's a little bit crazy, and his brother is younger, and the hijinks that go on with that. He gets in trouble with his parents for dropping an F-bomb. He really, really wants a special Christmas present, which ends up being a Red Ryder BB gun. And it's just basically his life that Christmas season. And it's actually based off of the guy who narrates the movie and wrote it, Gene Shepard.
He also pops up in the movie, and he does forget this.
I heard he was a real pain in the ass on set. Like he kept trying to argue with the director about how he was doing things. I mean, I guess it is his story, but still.
Yeah, there were like short stories, but he's the guy, if you're wondering, he's the guy who, when Ralphie and his brother go to see Santa at the department store, he's one of the shoppers there, right?
Yeah, and he's got his kid. And I think it's pretty crazy because I didn't realize until doing research for this that these were short stories that he wrote that were featured in Playboy.
Yeah.
This is like the most wholesome Christmas movie. And it was first told through Playboy.
Yeah. I read Playboy for stories.
Yeah. I guess someone did, and they made it a movie.
Well, all right. And what's interesting about it too is it's in the US, it's played on loop on Christmas Day or Christmas Eve. I always forget which one it is.
Christmas Day, 24 hours.
Okay, it is Christmas Day. I guess it started on TNT and now it's on TBS. Because of that, I feel like over the years too, like I almost like sort of missed the beginning of the movie. But the beginning of the movie starts out and it is like the start of Christmas season, and the movie ends on Christmas Day at the potentially offensive Chinese restaurant.
And
the other thing that also gets me too, and I don't know if you have this too, any movies in the early 80s. There was a lot of
This was 83, right? 1983.
Yeah. There's a lot of movies and TV shows from the early 80s, around when I was born, that depict the 50s, and I sort of like lose track of time on like when a movie's from. So like I had the same thing with Grease. Like growing up, I thought Grease was actually a movie from the 50s. not, again,
Like,
I
wow,
was a
John
child.
Travolta's really aging well. And Olivia Newton-John, she's still a dime piece.
Yeah. The movie was born.
Based in the 40s, right?
Is it based in the 40s?
I saw a thing that the timeline is like a little bit off, but it's like the one calendar has a date, December something, which actually happened in 1938 for that day in December to have fallen on that. And then there's a football game that the Bears play someone, I think.
Yeah.
And that happened in 40 or 41. And then something else shown where it's 1940. So I would say somewhere between 38 and 41.
No, you're right. It is based in December 1940.
Okay.
So you nailed it there. I didn't know that. I thought it was based in the 50s. That actually makes a little bit more sense, maybe. It was based in the 40s, but yeah, that's kind of crazy. I didn't realize it was that depicting that old. But all right, so to work it backwards, it's based on the 40s, or based in 1940. And then when did it appear in Playboy?
So he was writing the stories in Playboy in the 60s and 70s.
Okay, that makes sense.
Some of his short stories were then collected from Playboy and put into a 1966 book that he wrote, In God We Trust, All Others Pay Cash, which is where most of the material for the book came from.
Yeah, nice. I love humorist anti-capitalists.
It's very nice. It was very nice.
Jokes. Yeah. And we can get into like all the sequels. There's also a new sequel that just came out. We can sort of
Very
glaze
nostalgic.
over that a little bit. Yeah, but I will say to your point about like the movie doesn't get tiring. I was gonna say the way the movie is presented in like these sort of like there is an overarching story, right? And then on top of that, there are elements that play throughout. But essentially, like I was watching it with my kid, and I'm just like, oh, this scene's great, or this scene is great, and they kind of work on their own. And I guess the way it's described is that they're a series of vignettes, but I think that's also why it doesn't get tiring. It's not just a long story you have to buckle in for. It's just like a kid, working to try to get the present he wants for Christmas and working, over time, and all these like little events happen. And I think it touches on a lot of little things in childhood too.
One of the things I love about this movie is there's like that magic of when you're a little kid and there's that one gift, right? I know we talked about this a little bit in the Home Alone episode, but there's that one gift that you like dream about. Like you will do anything. You don't want to get in trouble. Like leading up to Christmas, your parents are like, oh, Santa's not going to bring you that, whatever the hell. And for him, it was this Red Ryder BB gun. And like, even as an adult, I remember that stress and excitement on Christmas morning being like, it's got to be under the tree. It's got to be there. I feel like it's going to be there. I was so good. I cleaned my room all week. And I mean, I love that magic feeling. It really does a great job of giving you the same feeling you had as a little kid based around Christmas. But also, I love his dad. His father, known as Old Man. The Old Man. The Old Man.
Does he not have a name? He's just the Old Man?
He's the Old Man. And some people are like, no, his name's Hal. The one neighbor says Hal. And they're like, no, the script reads Hell. The neighbor's saying Hell, not Hal. He was almost played by Jack Nicholson. I don't know. I couldn't see Jack Nicholson playing that.
Yeah.
But I love him. And again, another situation where the actor playing someone realized they can't curse. So all of the gibberish cursing that he does, just
gibberish.
just like Home Alone.
Yeah. Well, what's funny too is like the actor playing the Old Man was Darren McGavin. I liked the fact that there were no recognizable actors or actresses in it. Like, I think that kind of lends to why it's timeless. I think, with a lot of the movies and stuff, like the fact that it's sort of its own little thing, even though they, again, and we'll touch on it, but like they sort of tried to create an extended universe. Do you have a favorite like vignette, I guess, what it's actually, officially referred to as? Like,
it's a tie. When I come from a family where my dad and my stepfather are both mechanics, and there's that awful moment when they're asking you to like help them hold the flashlight or like whatever the hell it is, and like you do it wrong. And that scene where the tire goes flat and he's got to help his dad change a tire, and he says, "Oh fuck." And the dad, like, just that whole scene, it's just like, I've been there, man. Just like, he's not doing it right. He's not helping his dad the right way. I love that scene. It is so funny, and he does it so well. And the way that they get him to say fudge, the actual actor that played him said that he said fuck like 50 times for this take.
Yeah.
But they made him say it so many times, and the kid was only like 11 or something. And then they dubbed over it with the fudge. But I love the way that they build up around that word. It's like, it was the big one, the big F. Like, I love that scene, because that, when you're a kid, that is the big word. That's the, that's the Voldemort. Like, you cannot say it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
that's a good one.
Well, and before you tell me your other one, because the fact that, like, to the reaction of the mom in the car after when he's like, I'll tell you what he said. And then, like, whispers in her ear, and her shriek, he just dropped the F-bomb.
It's like he just, murdered someone in cold blood in front of his whole family.
What was your other favorite?
I love the scene when the dad gets the leg lamp, like when he opens it up and he gets his major award. He's like, fragile. And just, it's such, and it's just such a, you get a glimpse into this dad who the whole movie, you're like, oh my God, this guy sucks. He's like the worst dad, which I guess in the 40s, he's just a normal dad, probably a good dad by the 40s standards. Yeah. And then when he says, when he like opens it up and they, it's like he just opened a tomb of like an Egyptian pharaoh, the way he acts. He's like, oh my God, here it is. Yeah. And I love that part. And I love the leg lamp because it's very risque, right? Probably especially for the 40s.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah. I mean, the fact that the further you dial back in time, where the movie was based, I feel like it actually gets slightly worse as far as like dropping F-bombs or like a leg lamp. And now that's why the whole neighborhood was coming out. That actually leads to my favorite line in the movie. They refer to it as electric sex in the window.
That is the best name for like a punk band I've ever heard. How has no one started a band called Electric Sex in the Window?
Yeah. But I will say, I mean, I don't know, maybe this, I feel like this is like a litmus test for what type of person you are. My favorite scenes are the ones where, like, I love the tongue to the pole scene.
It's incredible. That's such a good one. And also a very big fear of my childhood after watching that movie. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
But it felt like you wanted to do it. It's like, I just want to try it once to see if that really happens.
And other movies have done it, but still that movie, I mean, that's the best part. And then also just like reactions of kids where as an adult, you're like, it's not that big of a deal. Or like, like when the teacher realizes what's happening and she runs out, all the kids run to the window to watch and they're like, jeepers, it's the fire department, and the police are here. Like, oh my, like this is just turning into this bigger thing. I love that for some reason. And the fact that Flick doesn't, rat on his friends, or was it Flick or Schwartz? It was Flick, right?
There's Flick and Schwartz are the two friends.
Yes. What were the bully names? Do you remember those?
Yeah, it was, oh my God, I have it in my notes. He makes a comeback in the new one. All three of them do.
Oh, do they? Wait, did you see the new one?
No, but I don't want to watch it yet. Yeah. I was going to watch it for this, but I was like, no, it's just like not time yet. Like I want to watch it on Christmas, but he does come back. And so do, the two friends, Flick and Schwartz, come back. One owns a bar.
Yeah.
And the other one, I think, is just like a loser and can't pay his tab for said bar. And the bully, is apparently a giant loser and like never leaves town, which is, great for good old Ralphie. Gets a little karma there.
Yeah.
What was his name?
Farkas?
Farkas. Yes, it was Farkas with a K.
Yeah.
Farkas with a K.
I love that other little kid who looks like the lead singer from AC/DC. His little hat just running around.
Oh my God.
Small guy.
So Peter Billingsley, who plays Ralphie.
Yeah. One
of my favorite facts, and I knew this before we were doing this podcast, and it was just like one of my favorite things. Ooh. Elf, another Christmas favorite. Mm-hmm. He plays the lead elf.
Yes.
And he tells Buddy, "You're not a cotton-headed ninny muggins, Buddy."
That's right.
I love it so much. I love it.
What else has he done? Has he done much else?
I know that he's friends with Favreau, and I just read an article earlier today that he had a hand in bringing the MCU universe to light.
What?
I don't know. Okay. He became friends with Vince Vaughn and Jon Favreau. He co-produced Made with them. and he continued to collaborate with both actors, and he was an executive producer on the Favreau-helmed Iron Man.
Oh my God. I had no clue.
He has a role in Iron Man as William Ginter Riva, a scientist employed at Stark Industries. The actor turned producer recently reprised the role for Spider-Man Far From Home.
That's insane to me. I had no clue. I thought he was just like, oh, off doing whatever and, in Lifeland.
He was the first kid to interview for the role.
Really?
He was like the absolute first one. And then they're like, oh, we've got to see more kids. And apparently they saw thousands more kids and he got the role.
Yeah. Wow.
He's perfect. That's like one of those things like Macaulay Culkin, right? Like you could never see another kid doing that role.
Well, I was going to say what I love about his character, too. He's still a kid when he gets his, drink your Ovaltine, the decoder thing in the bathroom.
Yeah.
Just his reaction to it and like just his demeanor and how he carries himself. There's not a lot of movies that depict kids in the way kids really are. And for some reason, that movie really captures it where like just the fact that like he can't contain himself, like in the beginning of the movie, like his mom's like, oh, like, what do you want for Christmas? And he like was like, planning it all out, how to like, slip it in there and be like very much like a kid, like slipping it in the paper and whatever. And then he just like shouts it out loud when she asks him what he wants for Christmas and he blows it. Or at least he thinks he blows it. What a rip or whatever he says after the drink your Ovaltine thing. Like just those little like, and I think that's what it is too, is the movie. And again, they're the vignettes, right? But like they capture these little like childhood moments, right? Like I think most of the other Christmas movies we've talked about or whether we did a podcast about it or not, like Home Alone or Elf or anything else, like they're whimsical stories
and they're fantastical. It's not real.
Yeah. Right. This is super grounded. It's just it is what it is. It's a movie about a kid and Christmas. And I don't know, and I'm thinking on the spot here, I don't know if there's a lot of movies like that, right? Am I wrong?
Not Christmas movies for kids that I can think of.
Yeah.
And if they are, it's probably animated, which automatically takes away the reality aspect of it. But that's a great point. It felt very genuine and authentic. Like everything was pretty authentic. And I guess that's, again, why people are still, younger generations are still watching this and loving it because it's,
and I was going to say too, I mean, the more I think about it too, is like how the hell, I mean, aside from the fact that like, obviously, they were like little stories in Playboy, but like, how do you sell a movie? Cause like if you had to describe the plot to the movie, what's the plot? It's just
kid at Christmas.
Yeah. I mean, it's like the overarching story is he wants a BB gun for Christmas. But aside from that, that's not a long story, right? It's just sort of happens in the background.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And funny that you say that because this movie did awful. It wasn't even shown on Christmas Day. It got pulled because it did so poorly. Oof. So it came out, I guess, like right before Thanksgiving and ran for 2 weeks. But those are like the 2 slowest weeks of movie season. And they pulled it from like almost every theater except for a couple. So it wasn't even in the theaters for Christmas Day, which if it was, I think it probably would have been incredible. But
so how did it actually bounce back? Like, how do you go from being a movie that gets pulled out of theaters to, is it just because of the TV airings? Was that it?
It must have. I don't know because it was popular by the time we came around to watching it. Like when I was a kid, there was no talk about it. This is what was on.
Yeah.
Christmas Day.
I watched it. I would watch it as a kid before there were the marathons, right? The marathons on TV started, I think, in the late 90s. In the early 90s, even maybe even the late 80s. I'd have to go back and ask my parents. I'm pretty sure this was a staple. I'm pretty sure this was something we had on a VHS somewhere floating around the house. But the more I think about it too, and after I've said that too, I think that's the point, is that there's not a lot of movies that just tell the story of a kid being a kid on Christmas, much less a kid being a kid any other part of the year either. This is a weird jump, but I think it's also the reason I really liked the movie Superbad, was because I feel like that like captures what it's like to be like a awkward teen. And like, what's the story? Like, it's just, they're in school and then they're going to go to a party. I mean, there's like all the fantastical stuff that happens in there, but like the small part of the story, or like the thread of the story is just, they're just teenagers being teenagers. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. The more I think about it, I'm like, I think that's probably what sets this movie apart, is like, there's not a lot that, and to your point about like being able to jump in and never get tired of it. Like, it just has longevity. It's a good movie. It's
a great movie. It's a feel good movie. You laugh, you like, there's tiny emotional things, but it just feels good the whole time you're watching it.
Yeah.
And I you brought it up before, the scene with the duck in the Chinese food restaurant and how the duck's head is still on. The lady that plays Ralphie's mother, they purposely gave her a fake script. She didn't know that was going to happen. So all of her like screaming and laughter is real. And they did that on purpose because they knew she would react that way. And now I can't wait to rewatch it now, knowing that, because that scene is so hilarious.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing too, is like, I think what's funny too is we've never talked about it here, but you're also Italian. I'm Italian.
Yes.
You're Italian.
Yes.
So our big thing, I don't know about you, my big thing was always Christmas Eve, right? That's when we had the big seafood dinner.
It would have been, but my parents were divorced. So growing up, my dad got Christmas Eve and we would go to my aunt's house. But that was my mom's big thing growing up. She would always talk about that. Unfortunately for her, she gave birth to children that aren't big seafood eaters. Broke her heart.
Man.
I know.
Breaking my heart.
I blame Crohn's disease. Crohn's disease. I can't eat it. It's not my fault. It's not my fault. I try.
Well, I was going to say, like, so what was your big Christmas Day dinner?
So growing up, my mom would have the 7 fishes Christmas Eve, and then Christmas Day was leg of lamb. Okay. When you're farting out kids left and right, I'm sure that was not exactly attainable cost wise in the 90s. So we did the classic Christmas ham, baby.
Wow.
Christmas ham. But I will say it's strange because being as Italian as we are, and maybe it's because we did homemade sauce and pasta every single Sunday and homemade meatballs and all that stuff every single Sunday. We didn't have a lot of Italian food on Christmas Day, but I also think that started after my grandfather passed away.
Yeah.
But then as we got older, there's a woman who became my grandmother, essentially, was a grandmother to me. She would make us a French toast bake Christmas morning. And it is like my favorite Christmas thing in the world. And we still do it. And it's like cream cheese and bread and maple syrup and like all these seasonings. And you just like soak eggs and all this deliciousness and butter into it. And then you bake it in the oven and it's ready. Like when you're done opening presents, we are a presents first. Actually, in my family, like they can't live without coffee. Like they don't survive without caffeine. So it's coffee, then presents. And then it's one at a time. Everybody watches the individual person open one present. My stepfather hands them out. My dad hands them out. And then we get to have breakfast. And then everybody would come over for dinner. But I also think it's, what did you guys do?
So Christmas Eve was our big one, right?
Yeah.
All the seafood. And it's funny too. And I don't know the genesis of this. And I've talked to other friends who were Italian who also did fish. But they're like, oh yeah, you have like, bacala. This. I was like, no, we just had shellfish. Like for the most part, with like very few exception, it was lobster, crab, shrimp, mussels, clams. Yeah, it was all like shellfish. And I think when I was trying to count it up, I was like, I don't know if I even got to 7 fishes, but we did a lot of fish. And we also did the pasta with a mixed seafood sauce, which was...
I think we were too poor for this. Once my grandfather died, he had all the money. Once he died, we were poor.
Yeah, I realized I need to explain. I was not rich growing up whatsoever. We were very, very much middle class. But that was the thing too, is like come Christmas, it didn't matter how bad things were. We were getting maybe there were a few years that lobster got skipped, lobster tails, but we still did crab. Like
Yeah.
That was the big thing. But what I was going at was we would do that, and Christmas Day was more like, what food are we talking about? Like, we have leftovers. We cooked all this fish yesterday. We cook and I get maybe that's to the point too. It was like, it's like a big extravaganza, but it's also like, whoa, okay. We spent a lot on this big feast. So it's going to last us multiple
It's going to last
dinners.
A week probably.
Yeah. So we didn't really have the whole Christmas night dinner. And the other thing too is I feel like I'm just going to make a generalization for anyone that celebrates Christmas. I feel like you put more stock into Christmas Eve because it's the last meal with everyone together before you go to sleep, wake up, do presents, and then it's over. That's it. Christmas.
Yeah, there is a depression to Christmas night, isn't there? I used to always think that as a kid. And I will say my partner, he loves holidays, and I'm sure he got that from his mom, but he loves decorating. He likes everything about Christmas. I love Christmas.
Yeah.
I love the Christmas season. It is a Christmas season. It is not a day.
Yeah.
So when people try to shit on me for watching Christmas movies in November, I won't hear it.
No.
But the Christmas night, we always sit down and we're always like, well, what do we do now?
Yeah.
And it's just the end of everything feels like it's ending. The year is ending. The fun has ended.
Yeah.
And I was a bartender in a club and bars my whole life. So Christmas or New Year's Eve, it's not a fun holiday for me. It was great. I can't wait to bartend for a bunch of drunks that have paid one price to get in, and it's open bar and they're not going to tip crap. And I have to be there. I used to hate New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
But it's, I don't know. There is a depression to Christmas night.
Oh, absolutely. And by the way, too, that's the thing. I mean, I guess put it this way. The movie still ends on Christmas at Christmas dinner, right? Even the movie here is that's it. The end. And definitely a synopsis for that. I remember as a kid, the fun was you're still off from school. So that added a little bit of element.
That's fair. No, that's correct. And you got to play with all your new toys and wear your new clothes.
Right.
But then 2 days after Christmas would hit, your mom would be super pissed because there's still wrapping paper all over the house and all these boxes. And remember in the 90s, all the toys came with those stupid twist ties. Everything was twist tied in the boxes and they'd be everywhere and she was stepping on them. And just there was an anger. And I mean, I see it now that I'm an adult. I totally get it. But and then it was you've got to clean your room. There's no room for these toys. Blah, blah, blah. And it was just the fun was over. And then school started.
I mean, they make it work and it's playful, right? But I'm literally a worse nightmare situation would be that Christmas Eve, or I mean, in their case, Christmas Day, but Christmas Eve for me, dinner was destroyed, and you had to we look forward to that,
yes,
all year. Where I was going to go next to, and I have a path to where I'm trying to go here, but I'll start here.
I will follow you, sir.
With the big one, the big question. If you're a kid, turn off the podcast. Also, while you're listening. But the Santa Claus
son
question
is listening.
Well, actually, he recently joined the adult club, which is where I'm going to go with this. So we're safe
I'm ready.
to talk here.
Cool.
But the big Santa question: when did you find out?
I was 85 when I was 7. I was an adult, and I was mother hen to my sister. I mean, my poor sister my parents sent my sister to a special school because they didn't think that she spoke, but I would speak for her. She spoke to me all the time, but they thought she was mute. So they sent her to a special school. I was so overprotective of her. So I found out, I want to say I just remember it. My dad was picking me up from my mom's house and it was just me in the car for some reason. And we were going to his house for the weekend. Maybe my sister was already there, coming later. And I was probably 8 or 9, maybe. No, probably earlier, maybe 7 or 8. And I, like an adult, I just remember looking at him and he was driving this shitty Dodge piece of crap car. And I just remember looking at him and I was like, Dad, I need you to be honest with me. You told me you'd never lie to me. And if you lied to me right now, I'll think you don't love me. So is Santa real? And my father, I will give him credit, said he was so upset because my dad really loved Christmas. He grew up very poor and the magic of creating Christmas for us was so important to him.
Yeah.
He was like, there was a guy. I don't even know if this is true. I've lived my whole life off this being true. And now that I'm realizing this, I don't even know if this is true. But he literally said there was a man, way back in history, was named St. Nicholas, who used to bring toys to little kids that didn't have very good lives and lived in orphanages. And the spirit of what he did to make sure that those kids got toys on Christmas morning is why we call, Santa Claus, Saint Nick, and blah, blah, blah. And so the spirit of him is real. That is real. That's what you feel every Christmas. Like, that's real. Yeah. But the actual guy that comes down the chimney, that's not real. And I just remember like so methodically being like, thank you for telling me the truth. Yeah. I appreciate it. I promise not to tell my sisters. Yeah. And I'm going to help you keep Santa alive. And I took that just job. Like that. So I was like such a weird kid, man. And I was so serious about it. I mean, I woke my sisters up and I would be like, do you guys hear that? Those are reindeer on the roof. There's no noise, but you can convince a stupid 3-year-old of anything. Or like, I would wake my sister up and be like, I just saw him in the kitchen. Yeah. Quick, come, quick. And I would be like, look, he left the door open. I left the door open. Like these little things I would do for them. But I took that job very seriously.
Wow.
Yeah.
A weird kid. That's taking it to a whole different level. That's a lot of responsibility on your shoulders too.
I do it. It's a problem. It's a problem with everything. How about you?
Here's what's funny. I don't remember. All I remember this one moment, and I'll tell you in a second, but I will say I am the youngest of 2, and my sister is 12 years older than me. So we have a large gap. And so I wasn't
if your sister was still believing in Santa when you were 8 or 9 years old,
we'd have a problem.
It's a problem.
No, but that's the thing. Like my sister and I were not close growing up either because we were such a gap in age. But out of that, I remember I was in the 3rd grade, so that I had to be like 7 or 8 years old, and it was Christmas morning. My mom's like, "Oh, look, Thomas! Look!" My mom called me Thomas. Look, Thomas! Look what Santa brought. And my dad's like, he doesn't. And just like that's all he gave was like he doesn't. What are you doing? Like. And then I was like, oh, yeah, Mom, I don't believe in Santa.
I still get presents from Santa. You don't?
Yeah,
Santa still comes to my parents' house every year. I still get presents from Santa. And my stepfather told us that the minute you stop believing in Santa, these presents stop coming. So like we would be 17, 18 years old and be like, yo, Santa turned up. Yeah. Look, Santa came. And he's like, it's a big joke, but wow, that's very sad for your mom.
I know I broke her heart right there and then, but I will say I was like, oh no, Mom, it's okay. Like, I don't believe in Santa. It's you don't have to, like, I think for me, it was like, oh, you don't have to put on the facade. Like, I know this is all a ruse. And the thing is, I literally grew up with television. Like I at like 5 years old had a TV in my room with a VCR.
Never allowed to have one.
Oh, really?
Never.
Okay.
Still
I was
now.
just like,
Still now, no TV in our room.
Well, keep in mind, too, like my parents already had a kid who grew up and she's 12 years older than me. So they were just like, here's a TV. That's your babysitter.
Just do
Goodbye.
it. Yeah.
Enjoy. So I just grew up watching movies and TV shows. Hence why we're here talking right now. But with that, I mean, I was a smart kid in that sense. I probably just like knew like, oh, yeah, that's not real. But I will tell you this. I have a better story than my own, which is my son's, because it literally just happened. This year. Yeah. Well, even worse.
No.
So, and this is different since we were kids, right? It's not just Santa anymore. Now you have the elf on a shelf.
I feel so bad for parents. What are you? Okay. What a crock of shit.
So
they have to worry about that.
Well, that's the thing. So my wife worked really hard every Christmas, starting on like the day after Thanksgiving.
And I bet you she was so good at it.
So
your wife is very creative.
She's very creative.
Yes.
And so every single day for 10 years, how long has it been now?
Oh my
10 years.
God.
She, between the day after Thanksgiving and until Christmas Eve, would, his name was Jingle, and he would show up and he would, like do something, and you weren't allowed to touch him, right? Because that's the thing they tell the kids, right? It's like they're not allowed to touch them. And so now my kid is 10. And here's the thing. I absolutely want anyone listening to this to tweet me or comment, or like whatever you have to do to get in touch with us to tell me whether or not you agree with this decision.
I'm uncomfortable already.
Okay.
Okay.
My son's 10 years old. And I was like, and I remember
Can I just
again, I was
preface this, but you have the sweetest, most
Yes.
empathetic son. He has such an old soul, and he's just like such a sweetheart. So
yeah, he's like, yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna cry probably. Go ahead.
And so we were going back and forth. So my wife started the Elf on the Shelf. His name was Jingle. That was our elf. Started Jingle's arrival
Journey?
right here to our apartment again. And after Thanksgiving, but even my wife was sort of like on the fence, like he's 10, but she wasn't really sure what to do. And I was just like, look, I was the one. And I'll say it out loud. I was the one who was pushing of just like, I think he's 10. He's getting older. I think, like, I remember how old I was. I didn't want him to be like, I don't want to screw him up socially with other kids. So he came home from school, and apparently he had noticed that my wife didn't update his location or like do anything creative. He was just there, no note or anything. Because that's the thing too. My wife put in notes, like full on, 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, like filled with like a whole letter every single day. Because that's the thing. The goal of the Elf on the Shelf, or the story as it goes, is they're there to check on how you're doing, and
It's a little fucked up, right?
Right.
It's a little fucked up.
So here's the thing, and this is what breaks my heart. It's gonna break your heart too.
You're probably gonna make me cry, but go ahead.
So he comes home from school, and there was a point a couple months ago where he was like, "Dad, you wouldn't lie, right?" Like that kind of stuff, like same thing like you kind of did with your dad.
Oh, we're manipulators,
and he was sort of prying to see what he didn't actually ask the Santa question or anything, but he was sort of just asking like generally. And I thought maybe it was like, oh, he knows. I think at this point I was like, maybe he's kind of going along with it because he is a sweet kid like that. And so anyway, where it goes is he comes home from school, and I'm like, we have to my wife did not want to. She's like, I'm not ready. I'm like, it's okay. It'll be okay. I'll take care of it. And so I sat on the couch and I was like, oh, so do you believe in Santa? Do you still believe in Santa? And he was like, yeah, and like telling me, and then he, like, I'm just staring at him because I'm like, I'm trying to think what I was going to say next. And he's like, are you trying to tell me he's not real? And I'm like, no. But here's where it gets like heartbreaking. Is he was
I feel like
yeah.
I'm mad at you, and I don't know why.
No, it's okay.
I feel like I'm Wes right now, and I'm so disappointed in you.
And
okay, keep going.
So he as he goes through that, he's just like, oh yeah, I can kind of like kids at school. And and that's exactly what I thought, right? It was like, he'll be like, Santa's real, and kids are at school. We're like, no, you're stupid. Like, Santa's not real. And I didn't want him to be that kid. I didn't want him to like, because again, you're a parent, you're protective, right? I don't want to put him in a situation or have him be anywhere where like other kids are, giving him crap. Anyway, but he was still clinging on to like, he was okay with Santa not being real, but Jingle was personal. Jingle came every year. Jingle wrote him notes, and he was like, but Jingle's real, right? I'm like, no.
This is the saddest story.
That was the one that
so sad.
That was the one where he like, he and he's a tough kid too. He's like, he started crying. He's like, I don't know why I'm crying. I'm just like, he's like keeping it together for us.
It probably felt like he was losing a friend.
I mean, he grew up in that moment, right?
Yeah.
Like immediately I just like, it was a giant milestone in his childhood that shifted in that moment, right? Because he went from like being like Santa's real and magic is real, and all of a sudden it's like, no. Like
now he doesn't believe in Harry Potter. You've ruined everything.
I ruined Harry Potter now. But can I tell you the emotional moment too? Is he was like, well,
oh, there's another one.
Well, yeah, because keep in mind, he like this little stuffed little thing has been a part of his life for like 10 years. He's like, well, can I touch him? Like that's because that was the whole thing, is like, he wasn't allowed to touch him. You just saw him and he got to touch him. And he was telling me, he's like, it feels weird. Like my whole life I was like, because the whole thing is they scare the kids from touching because they don't want to mess with it. Is like, if you touch him, it'll like, the magic disappears or whatever. And so he touched him and like he got emotional again. And then, but he's doing okay now, but at the same time too, I was like, and now he's in on it for his cousin who's younger, who obviously still, is young, but yeah, it was an emotional roller coaster.
I think you guys did the right thing, and he heard it in a way that he could express those emotions. Because imagine, like you said, imagine he heard that at school. Someone was like, the elf on the shelf isn't real, you idiot, you know? And then he wouldn't have had a safe space to express his emotions. So I think it's great that you guys did that. I'm just sad for him. And I'm sad for your wife, who just, I know what you mean. I felt the same way when my sisters stopped believing. It felt like you're right. The magic is gone. Like the magic that surrounds Christmas.
Well, how old was your sister?
Gone. I have 5 sisters.
Right, but I'm saying how old did they, like, what age did they find out? Do you know?
Well, the last one, they weren't as nice to each other as they got older. It's like my one sister, like I have, my 3 youngest sisters, they're fairly close in age with each other. Mm-hmm. So I have a feeling that once the older of the 3 found out, she may have protected the middle one a little bit, but definitely once the middle one found out, she was to her younger sister. I'm going to have to survey this on Christmas, not in front of my 2-year-old niece, and figure out what went down there. But there was a sadness, and it, like I said, I mean, there's also a fun to Christmas when you're all grown up. I mean, one of my family's favorite traditions is writing tags that are so inappropriate. I'm sure everyone has gathered that by the mouth of a trucker that I have. I learned this from my mother. My vocabulary came from her. But I mean, I can't tell you, one year I got underwear individually wrapped from Victoria's Secret from every boyfriend I've ever had. My sisters wrote the tags to Amanda from ex-boyfriend name redacted, to Amanda from other ex-boyfriend name redacted. I used to get drunk. I mean, I still do. I would get drunk when I'm wrapping their Christmas presents and would write ridiculous things on the boxes. Like one year it was a Santa that had like his arms up on a clothing box for my brother-in-law. And I drew a giant dick on the Santa and said, "Look at my dick." And my brother unwrapped the gift and it was just a sweater, but he looked at the box. He was like crying. I didn't even remember I did it because I was blackout drunk when I was wrapping the Christmas presents. Yeah. So there's, we had our own magic back into it, but
I love those moments too, where you do something when you're drunk or whatever.
Oh yeah. And
then you get to hear the story after about what you were doing. Cause it's like you're hearing a story about yourself that you weren't there for.
I wasn't even there for it. Yeah. I wasn't even there.
Well, all right. So this was a really long way to go around it.
That was fun though.
But I
like hearing about other people's Christmases.
Yeah, I'm sure everyone hates me now too, because part of me hates me. Just to be clear.
I know I was joking, but like you did the right thing. Unfortunately, kids aren't as kind as we want them to be, and I feel like he was able to express his emotions in a really safe place, and he was able to process them properly instead of the poor kid coming home from school crying because Well,
and also, by the way, for devil's advocate, I had proposed doing this breaking of the news in like July, and then I think we could have done it outside the Christmas season and it would have been better, but we did it inside the Christmas season. Maybe not the best, but before I move on, do you have an idea? Like, in your opinion, is there a perfect age to learn it? Is there a perfect age or like an ideal age to when you find out?
I wish I knew the right answer to that because I don't have children. Of my own. So I don't know what kids are like now. You know what I mean? Like in my head before they got to middle school, maybe like 5th grade.
Yeah. It's like 10 years old. I mean,
So that's accurate. I feel like middle school, everyone changes. They start to go through puberty and like, everything becomes different. Like now they're embarrassed to talk to girls where before the girls were gross. And now, girls are like, care what boys think of them. Where before we were like, go push him on the ground as hard as you can. And then we'll all laugh to make him feel bad. So I feel like everything changes in middle school and being cool really starts to matter to you as a kid. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say too, I mean, funny enough, I think, I don't know if this was done on purpose. I don't know why we have it segmented with elementary and middle school and high school, but in New York City, at least, middle school is 6th, 7th, and 8th grades.
Yes.
And it's perfect because it's a transitionary period. By the time you get out the other side, I mean, no one's ever prepared for high school, but you're a lot more prepared. than if we're still in elementary school up till 8th
Yeah,
grade.
unless you're our spouses. Our spouses grew up in a town the size of a mud puddle, and I'm pretty sure it's all but a few. I don't remember what the elementary school.
Oh, I do know. Like literally, it's like they just kind of combine elementary school and middle school, and then high school is just 4 grades. So you in the 8th grade are in the same school as
that is wild.
As like kindergartners, or maybe it's like 7th grade. I don't know. But also, like our spouses went to like a rural high school and school system that was still now there's stuff where I'm like, where did you grow up? Like, what are you talking about? That's not how these things work.
Blows my mind.
But anyway, so to finally get there, the whole detour I just took was to essentially get to the crust of the story in the movie, because we are talking about a movie here, if you forgot. Is he opens up all the presents at the end of the towards the end of the movie, right? It's Christmas. Opens up all the presents. No Red Ryder BB gun, right? And then a little wink from the old man, who's like, in the corner over there. Mom didn't know about it. And then there's that moment too, because that was the thing too. Even as a kid, I'm like, oh yeah, I knew the dad got it for him, but I appreciated it more. And of course, now me being a dad, I'm like, literally pointing at the screen with my son, being like, see, look who loved him. Look who it was who secretly, and he was, because in the movie, Ralphie thinks it was from Santa, right? Ralphie doesn't pick up on the fact that it was from his dad, but his dad's like, oh, I had one when I was a kid. And you can see the joy in his dad's face as he's like loading the BBs, like he's like, miming like how to load it. He's like, oh, go easy, go easy. Like there's a joy in his dad's face. And, they don't play the dad up to be like some grouchy, mean father. Like he's just there and he's pissed off.
He's the old man. Yeah.
Yeah. He's pissed off at the, the furnace downstairs in the basement and just in life in general sometimes. But aside from that, I will say too, the old man's actually a nice dad, right? Like
I would say by the 40s standards, he's probably as freaking good as they get.
Yeah.
We've all seen Mad Men. It wasn't great.
Yeah, it's a good point, right? I mean, like there wasn't a vignette where the old man throws the dinner against the wall in the kitchen. Yeah. So I guess that's good. Leg up for 40s era father. But yeah, I think that was the thing that stood out to me watching it this year, and maybe given the context of everything I was just sharing, that I was like, oh, look, it was the dad who was just like, everyone in his life is like, you'll shoot your eye out, kid. It's too dangerous. Yeah. Right. But his dad's like, it's what he wants. And I had one, and I know. And like it was very clear, like his father understood that joy of it's Christmas and I had a little BB gun or whatever. And I love that. That was the part where I was, close to a tear for the first time. After watching it all these years. It's one of my
favorite parts. And what's so funny is like my parents growing up, and I have a very, my mom is like, everyone says like their mom's the best human on earth. My mom is the best human on earth. And she never wanted any big present to come from Santa because she didn't want us to go to school. And we were not well off by any means, but she didn't want us to go to school and be like, Santa bought me a Nintendo 64. Yeah. And some little kid be like, Santa bought me socks and a toothbrush because I needed socks and a toothbrush. So, Santa brought us things, but never big presents. And one of my, like, talking about the Red Ryder BB gun and that whole thing reminded me of when my partner and I started dating. Probably, I don't know, we've been together for 12 years. So it was probably like maybe 4 or 5 years in. And my stepdad, my partner plays golf, so my stepdad every year just thought that the only thing that golfers wore were Argyle sweaters. And he plays golf for a living, so he doesn't have to buy Argyle sweaters anymore because it's not 1964. So every year he got an Argyle sweater. So one year, and he was so serious. My partner was like, I really want a Red Ryder BB gun. I've never had a BB gun before. I really want one.
Really?
And so when my stepdad's like, oh, what? He's a little tiny Italian. He's like, what should I get Henry for Christmas? What do you want? What do you think he wants? I'm like, you know what? I think he's good on sweaters. You've kept him really warm. He said he wanted a Red Ryder BB gun. He's like, what? Are you serious? Yeah. And he bought him a Red Ryder BB gun.
That's awesome.
He just found it the other day and he's like, still shoots, spot on. And he was so excited when he opened it on Christmas in front of my family. He's like, no way. Yeah. A Red Ryder BB gun has the same effect, even on a 33-year-old.
Well, I was going to say, if you look back at your childhood, did you have a gift or a specific year that was like your Red Ryder BB gun?
Let me think. It may have been the Talk Boy.
Really?
That we talked. That like I really wanted that, and the 2XL. One I never got because the money just was not there, and I was so mad because all of my other sisters got them because they got cheaper. I never got an American Girl doll. I asked for it every year.
Yeah.
I got this budget ass brand. I got the books and I never got the doll. And then 2 years after, it would have been cool for me to have one. And all of my little rich friends in school had them and I never got one. And then 2 years after, and they were a little bit cheaper. And I remember my mom got one for my sister and it was like, my heart broke.
Oh man.
She got Josephina.
But like, were you advocating to your parents? Like, hey, I this is what I want. This is on my Christmas list.
Yes and no. I didn't like asking for things. I felt like, oh no, just buy things for everyone else. Yeah. But also expected them to know, which is awful. Yeah. But yes, I would throw. Well, this is actually, I can't believe I didn't tell this story. This is the Red Ryder BB gun story, kind of. One year my sister and I got matching suitcases that said going to grandma's, and we kept opening summer clothes, summer clothes, summer clothes. And I was like, such a little brat, like so embarrassed of myself in this moment. I was probably 8 or 9 years old. And I was like, this is the worst Christmas ever. You bought us a suitcase. We never go on trips. You bought us summer clothes. I can't even wear them right now. This is the worst Christmas. And my sister that's directly below me, like my Irish twin.
Yeah.
You could have given that kid used toilet paper and she would have been so grateful and happy. She was like the nicest little kid. She opens up her suitcase. She's like, this is amazing. I love this. Thanks so much, Mom. And she's sitting in there and she's like, ooh, papers. Inside were tickets to Disney World. God. But there I am having an epic meltdown like a spoiled brat. And my lovely Bronx Italian mother's like, yeah, how about that, Amanda? You were supposed to go to fucking Disney World. How do you feel now? I just remember, like, I ruined this beautiful Christmas surprise my parents had probably saved for 5 years. Yeah. That's embarrassing.
What's even funnier there, too,
I shouldn't have shared that.
No, but did she give you a moment to let you, like, bask in, like, just being bratty before she, like, hit you with or did she let her?
The whole time they let me do it. Every single present I opened, I was like, oh, great. More shorts. I was such a brat.
Was it in your suitcase or was it just in your little sister's suitcase?
It was in both of my
did you
suitcases.
miss it?
And they kept saying, open them up. Like, there's nothing in a suitcase. You're supposed to put stuff in a suitcase. And my sister like opened hers up and was sitting in it. She was so excited.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really awful.
I was going to say, it's funny because I've gotten really good. When I was a kid, I got really good. Santa took care of me. Santa was cool, even though I didn't believe in Santa pretty quickly. But I will say, like, because I grew up with Super Nintendo, right? Like that was my jam.
Yeah, that's a good
Nintendo
one.
Before that.
Yes.
It wasn't until I was like, you get like the big thing was we'd get the Toys R Us catalog in the mail.
Oh, man. And you could circle the stuff you wanted.
Right, it was like the Sunday paper with like the big, the flyer,
the excitement when the Toys R Us catalog would come in.
My big thing was, so it was a few things, right? I think one year mine was SNES, right? That was the big one, and then a couple of years later, I was always a Nintendo kid, and then my cousin gave me because he grew up or whatever. His Genesis, and then suddenly, the Sega CD was coming out.
Sega Saturn, baby.
Well, no, this is the Sega CD. That was different.
Wait,
so there was Sega Saturn,
really,
and there's Sega CD, two separate.
We only
things.
I loved Sega. We were both family, but yeah, Sega was great.
I have to now you're gonna make me check which came first. But I remember like Sega CD. That was what I wanted. It's all I talked about. Right. That was the big one. And I really wanted that one. That was the one. I got to look it up actually too. I'm trying to figure it out what year that was. I think it was, I'm looking here right now. It was the Sega Genesis, and then the Sega CD came in like 93. And that was the one where I was like, oh, I want this. And actually looking back now, by the way, I'm looking at this right now. I didn't even realize this with the timestamps and everything, but from what I'm looking here, it came out around the time I stopped believing in Santa, or at least I knew Santa wasn't real. So
Your parents are like, nope.
yeah.
You
Well,
don't believe in
my
Santa, you're not
parents-
getting it.
My parents, and that was the thing too. Once I didn't believe in Santa, right? My parents were very efficient. I was given a budget. Here's how much. Here's like the price of your big gift for the year.
Wow.
And it was whatever the price. I forget what it was, and I'm almost reluctant to say it because I know the number,
Okay, you
but I
don't
also
have to.
feel like I'm gonna be judged because
You have to.
oh,
Everyone will just look up the price for a Sega CD in 1994. Everyone look it up.
yeah.
Or 93, whenever it came out.
So yeah, it was that price. But that was the thing too. Is like, and I swear to God, I really did not grow up like we were very very much middle class. But I don't know. My parents very much took care of, like, Christmas was the big thing. My birthday is in November, and I got usually Jack for my birthday because Christmas is next month.
Yeah, that's not a
where we
great
save
time
it.
for you.
And I'm not saying this is the reason, but Christmas, we open presents around other families. So maybe there's also a judgmental thing there too. It's like, let's make sure we save the good presents for when other people are around to see what good parents we
I
are.
have two sisters. One's birthday is December 1st. The other's December 10th.
Yeah. Did they get shafted on Christmas too? On their birthdays
I'm going to be completely honest with you. My one sister, the one that's closest to me in age, she has had the most epic string of awful birthdays for like the past 10 years. We have had so many family members die right by her birthday. A couple days before, so the funeral falls on her birthday.
Yeah.
Blizzards where her birthday parties would get canceled all the time. I remember one time she had a sleepover with friends, electricity went out. Like, just the worst birthdays you can imagine. This poor girl, and it was like a movie sleepover. So what are you gonna do? My mom's like, those were all my plans, but they're gone. She's had some really bad birthdays. She was the second kid syndrome, Back to the movie that we were talking about. Yeah, you do know. One thing that I truly do love about this movie, and we haven't talked about it, is the scene with the snowsuit when he can't put the arms down. It is like one of... I remember my mom bundling us up to go outside. Again, there were so many kids. We didn't get new snowsuits or anything like that. We just got whatever our older cousins couldn't fit in anymore. That's kind of just what we got.
Yeah.
And you're a 90s kid when your mom put Wonder bread bags on your feet, like to go in snow boots so that your feet didn't get wet. The color changing, snow boots and that kind of stuff. But that scene where he gets bundled up to go outside, I remember a million times my mother doing that to me. 400 layers to go outside. I'm like, I can't even move my arms to make a snowball.
Well, that's the thing too. That kid in that movie, Randy, is hilarious because Randy is just
amazing.
There. I didn't grow up with younger siblings, but I love the fact that he's sort of just there, and he's not, aside from him, like him and his brother have this good relationship, right? Like, it's just such a good movie. If you realize he's the one who like runs home to get his mom because Ralphie's beating up the bullies. But that kid's just great. Yeah, when he falls over, when he's like, and like it just becomes a recurring thing. Like that's how he gets to and from school, is he has to like be completely wrapped up where he can't put his arms down.
And the bunny suit, the pink bunny suit, that's one of the things that Billings took from the set.
Really?
Like he was able to leave was the bunny suit, and he got the broken glasses, which is hilarious because everyone's like, and he left the broken glasses, and then someone was like, they were his own glasses, like those are his real glasses, and they broke on set, which is so funny.
Yeah, well, I guess because we talked about this from the other movie, from Home Alone 2. You think they made him pay for any of the toys he played with and take him home? That was
insane. Yeah. Did you know that house actually is like a real house and it's sold on eBay for? Hold on, I read it earlier today.
The Christmas Story house.
Yeah, like their house.
Yes,
you can stay at it. It's an Airbnb now, but it's like $150,000. It was auctioned off for.
Yeah, so slightly. Diving a little bit further in, right? Two things. One, yes, you're absolutely right. It's also a museum. You can go there and like there's a whole museum attached to it. The house still stands. They're actually in the midst of trying to sell it, or they were trying to sell it. And then sort of slightly funnier is the guy who owns it now is very protective of it. And I think he like lives across the street even, right? But it's very much a business. And then he put it up for sale. And, but prior to that, he got into like a street argument with one of the actors in the movie. I want to say it was one of the bullies, or it was like a side character. It wasn't even like one of the main kids, but one of the kids apparently, like, there was like accusations that he was like the kid from the movie was trying to get people to come on his side and do like a GoFundMe to buy the house because he wanted to buy the house. And, you know, I think the guy who currently owns it was being pressured, like, oh, come on, let the guy who was in the movie buy it from you for like a, you know, like a lot less than you get for it. And so he was obviously all annoyed with that. And, but
drama
where it gets dramatic and kind of like, just that now you're just taking this like nice movie that like people enjoy watching around the holidays and turning it into like, you know, just trying to milk it for all you have. Is like, there's like, you know, the guy who owns the house, the kid from the movie, they're trying to like, you know, hang on to the glory from 1983 of the one movie. But however, yes, if you are in Cleveland, you can go and see the house, stay at the house, or even just visit the museum that's attached. They have a bunch of stuff there. It's supposed to be pretty cool.
There's so much around this whole movie. It created, like you said, it created like a whole universe. I didn't know that this whole, like, now I can't unsee it now that I've read this.
Yeah.
The people that made Wonder Years said that like the entire style of how Wonder Years was written and created is based off of A Christmas Story.
Really?
Just that narration and those, like you said, those vignettes and these tiny stories and the way that it goes. Was so like closely related to how they created and shot it that Peter Billingsley later on appears as a roommate of Kevin Arnold in the final episodes.
Really? I didn't know that. Huh.
As like an homage to where they started. That's another one we have to do because Wonder Years to me is like one of the greatest shows ever created.
I haven't gone back and watched it in a while, but I have to go back. And also, I mean, the fact that, you know, Marv is the narrator, so I can't unlove that. Before we end it all,
we're gonna end it all. This is the episode. End it all.
I can't take it anymore. I wanted to touch on, there are a slew of attempts to create sequels for this movie, and some are better than others.
I haven't watched any.
So I've watched one. There's a YouTuber, I think it's called Hats Off Entertainment, that did a really good video where he went through trying to find one of these like lost sequels that apparently was like something produced for like the Disney Channel. He has a better explanation of it, but like, yeah, there was like some direct to TV, like made for TV movies. There was like a few like direct to video movies. The one that was, we'll call it good, was a movie that originally was titled It Runs in the Family. Eventually it was renamed to My Summer Story, which I guess, you know, connects it to like A Christmas Story. That one stars Kieran Culkin.
Oh, I did read about that in this little fancy article.
Yeah.
Okay.
Gene Shepard's still the narrator, but this becomes like a summer story. It's instead of Christmas Story, where it hangs on to a little bit of like the concepts of it. And by the way, for what it's worth, I don't believe, I believe, or maybe I don't know. I think this movie is the only other one that was still based on Gene Shepard's writing.
Okay. Whereas
all the others kind of just like, you know, steal the IP and just like, yeah, you know, it was Christmas Story 2, you know, Christmas prequel. This hangs on to like, there is like a overarching thread, and then there is some vignettes, but it still has, this one's a little bit more of an actual storyline. Also, Charles Grodin is the father who plays the old man. I love Charles Grodin. But this one had a good cast. It was Charles Grodin, Kieran Culkin, Mary Steenburgen, which I can't pronounce her name, who were the main cast. So he actually had some like a little bit of star power there, and they were, you know, there's that. But aside from that,
there was a Broadway show in 2012 in which Peter Billingsley was a producer for, written by the same two geniuses that wrote La La Land and The Greatest Showman.
No, as I say, Peter Billingsley, apparently, I mean, if you look at all the names he pulled in around him, it's like, he's a good producer. Good for him.
I'm going to blow your mind right now.
Yeah.
When I was looking for the one little fact there, In 2010, the person that played Randy lived in the house. He made friends with the person that owned it, he quit acting.
Yeah.
He pursued a graphic design career. He befriended the owner, asked if he could reside up there for a few months. He lived in the house, and then he moved onto the 3rd floor and gave tours and hosted meet and greets with the visitors.
Jeez.
In 2010. That's holding on, baby.
I mean, can you imagine being like, oh, hey, look, we're in Columbus. Let's go visit it. I just saw on TikTok or whatever. You can go see the Christmas Story house, right? You go there, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, I
played a 5-year-old.
I was Randy.
Hold on, let me go get my snowsuit. My snowsuit.
He's in slippers, But anyway, so there has been so many freaking sequels of this movie, and then apparently there was another one called A Christmas Story 2. Do you know who played the father in this one in A Christmas Story 2? Daniel Stern.
Bringing it back.
Yeah. Full circle now.
Woo-hoo.
That's 2 Christmas movies for Daniel Stern at least.
Under the belt.
And by the way, before I leave that one, A Christmas Story 2, and I'm just vaguely running through this, by the way. It's 6 years later from the original movie, and I think at this point now he also has like a love interest. There's like a love interest for Ralphie.
Okay, Ralphie.
He's growing up, yeah.
Playing with his Red Ryder, just not his BB gun.
Yeah.
Ew.
And then the new one which came out, and there's also, by the way, I'm skipping over this, but yes, there is another lost sequel in here somewhere. The new one is A Christmas Story Christmas.
I've heard this one is actually great. Like the Christmas Story, purists are like, it feels like the same visit. It's basically his dad dies, and he's like an aspiring science fiction writer, and his dad dies, so he goes back home to comfort his mom and brings his kids with him because he wants to recreate a perfect Christmas like he had the year he got his Red Ryder BB gun for his children who haven't been able to experience that. So to me, if you're gonna do it, they did it the right way. I wish the other ones didn't exist, so that this could come when he's an adult with his family and his kids. And this one's based in the 70s. Yeah. So he's essentially,
what's the time jump? Do we know?
1973, 33 years after the first film.
Okay. Jeez. Wow. Okay. So if it's 33 years, he's in his 40s then.
Yeah. So he's a real dad, and he's no one wants to publish his book, and he's sad, and his dad dies. So he moves home, and he brings his wife and his kids, and his buddy owns the bar, and his other friend's a loser. I think it's going to be good. I can't wait to watch it. And even if it's not, at least, I don't know. I like that it's him playing the dad, and there'll be some nostalgia there. Well, Merry Christmas, everybody. Hope everyone had a great Christmas and Hanukkah or whatever you celebrate.
We did 2 Christmas episodes this season.
So we did. By the time this airs, you will have listened to the Home Alone.
Yeah.
Home Alone. I've only had one cocktail during this. Okay.
Good time.
This was so fun. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas.
Bye.